So the original version of the paragraph 79 policy began in 1997 when the Secretary of State John Gummer introduced a clause to allow somebody who might have, say, 200 acres in the countryside to build a country house, and so furthering the tradition of the English country house. The clause in the early days got known as Gummer's Law or the Country House Clause, and there weren't many applications came forward because they tended to be very large country houses, often quite classical in their style, and that was where it all began. But the wording of the policy back then in PPG 7, Planning Policy Guidance Note 7, paragraph 3.21, as it was then, was where this policy sat. And yeah, the wording was very different, but some of the roots of the kind of core tests of the policy were still in there. So I'm just going to read out some of the elements that were in that original piece of policy. But it basically, one of the things it says is that housing in the open countryside should be strictly controlled. And it went on to say that the fact that a single house on a particular site would be unobtrusive is not by itself a good argument. It could be repeated too often. Isolated new dwellings in the countryside require special justification. An isolated new house may be justified if it's clearly of the highest quality, is truly outstanding in terms of its architecture and landscape design. Interesting, they've got the term landscape design in there. Talk about that later. And would significantly enhance its immediate setting and wider surroundings. Proposals for such development would need to demonstrate that proper account had been taken for the defining characteristics of the local area. And it went on to say that it's provided an opportunity to add to the tradition of the country house. That's where the term got coined, the country house clause, at that point. So that's the start of the policy. We're going to move on to some other videos where we talk about some of the evolutions that the policy went on over time, and we can see how it's changed and why in some later videos. But thank you very much. Cheers.